biggest garden myths that are on social media.
So one of the 4 biggest garden myths is that potato towers that you see oftentimes on Pinterest, you can grow 100 pounds of potatoes in 4 square feet.
Well, this is a big myth because there's no way that the way it's designed is you build a box 2 foot by 4 foot, so you have 4 square feet. 2 by 4s is the corner post. Then you have like 3-inch slats that as the potato tower develops or the potatoes grow, you put these slats or you nail these slats on, and then you backfill with compost or soil. And then as the potato grows or the vine grows, the theory or the misconception is that everywhere that stem will touch soil, more roots will develop and more tubers will form. Well, that's simply not the case. There is no potato known to man that will do such a thing. They will develop in a certain depth of the potato, 6-7 inches at maximum, at the base of the plant, like where you plant the actual seed potato. And beyond that, the vine can grow 30 feet, and it doesn't matter how much soil you put on it or where it's around. It's not going to develop any more tubers. You'll see hundreds of videos online about building potato boxes. Oh, we're going to have a great year. You have a couple of dozen of failures, and you never have any success ones because it doesn't exist. You can do this in a certain parameter. If you did a layer of potatoes, they sprouted, you put soil over top of those, then you put another layer of potatoes, then you have more of a chance. But these all potato boxes that you see online is the premise of 1 layer of potatoes at the base and then no more potatoes. And that's not how the potato plant even develops tubers. You'll see these potato towers that are made out of fencing where you have the 4-inch holes and they pack it with straw and soil, and multiple holes have multiple potatoes. That's a totally different thing. That's not that produces more potatoes in a very small area, but a traditional potato box doesn't exist, and there's no functionality and no proof, and the science behind it doesn't show that it does.
So our next myth is that coffee grounds make your soil acidic. So yes, fresh coffee grounds, so say that coffee grounds that have not gone through the brewing process, those are acidic. But used coffee grounds, so once you've brewed your coffee, those are neutral. What happens is during that brewing process, those coffee grounds, the acidity goes to the coffee that we drink. The acidity does not stay in the grounds. So if you rinse your used coffee grounds, they will have a near neutral pH of 6.5 and it will not affect the acid levels of the soil. However, they do add nitrogen and they are good food for worms. So if you are lacking worms in your soil, you can definitely mix in some coffee grounds, probably about a 5-gallon bucket per like every 15 square feet.
You don't have to rinse the coffee grounds. That's just what some people recommend, which I don't understand. But
if you get them from like a coffee shop or even your own, you can put the filters in there too. Those filters will break down fairly quickly.
The NPK of coffee grounds, used coffee grounds, brewed coffee grounds, is about 2% nitrogen, 0.3% potassium phosphate is about the same as well. So and you have to bury these. Otherwise, if you just broadcast them on the ground, it'll lose that nitrogen. That nitrogen will escape into the atmosphere and you've lost the benefit. Another thing that you can do if you have small quantities of coffee grounds is just make a little trench in your garden about a foot away from your plants, 2 or 3 inches deep, and then just sprinkle them down and cover them over. And that will help feed the soil, bring the worms in. It won't hurt the soil again at all. So people saying, oh, I've got blueberries, I'm going to put coffee grounds around the blueberries to make those blueberries more acidic. This is not the case. This doesn't work. If you want to lower the pH of your garden soil or any soil because of certain plants that require that low acidity, you can do that through sulfur. Now, it can be added, it really should be added the year before you intend to plant something in that particular place, because this transition from one pH percentage or number to another takes time in the more natural sense. Now, if you want a very quick fix, iron sulfate you can add to the soil, and this will transition your pH level or adjust it very rapidly in a 3 to 4 week period. So you need to be very cautious when applying that iron sulfate that you don't overdo it, because you can't bring it back very easily because of that sudden transition in your soil pH. And the next garden myth is
companion planting. So companion planting, you might see a lot of times on social media, whether it be like Facebook or Pinterest. Here's this companion planting chart. Here's this companion planting guide, etc. And if you look at them exclusively and together, you will see some of them will say don't plant tomatoes next to basil, or plant tomatoes next to basil, or don't plant basil next to pumpkins, or you should plant basil next to pumpkins. There's not a consistency in those companion planting charts. I don't know where they come from. I don't know if people just make them up, perhaps because of their own personal successes. However, they are simply not scientifically proven. Now, there is things like growing plants together, like polyculture, and that's when you grow plants next to each other for space saving purposes. So a lot of people will do that. Like, for example, we started some peas in our soil, in our raised bed, and then after the peas are developed, we're going to start, and after it's time, we're going to plant some cucumbers in the same spot, and then after the peas die off, the cucumbers will grow and kind of take over that space. Now, that's not quite companion planting, it's kind of them planting together. Another concept of companion planting is something like the Three Sisters method, where you have the squash is the ground cover, the corn is the trellis for the beans, and the beans grow up the corn stalk, and then you have that method, and that is a good kind of companion planting, but it's just those plants assisting each other. There's nothing where it says like that the beans are going to feed the corn. That's not scientifically proven either, that the nitrogen in the beans are feeding the corn, which corn is a high nitrogen needing plant.
Yeah, so watch your charts. There are some relative stuff that makes sense, that you don't want to plant X plant next to Y plant because X plant attracts bugs that will attack Y plant. But yeah, not all the charts match. 30 out of 40 are different. So be aware of that. And now the final garden myth, it's if you add rocks to the bottom of a container, it will allow the container to drain better. This is a terrible thing to do, whether you're adding rocks or cans or styrofoam or wood chips or whatever material at the bottom of a bucket. Now, what I'm saying is this does not apply if you have a 3-foot tall vase at the doorway of the house that you're putting something in the bottom to take some of that material away that you don't have to fill it with.
Especially if you're just planting annual flowers in that decorative vase. Yes. Then
we're talking 5-gallon buckets or,
right.
Yeah, this type of thing.
Or like just a regular terracotta pot that you're growing some cucumbers in. You don't want to put, 4 to 6 inches of gravel or whatever at the bottom. You want to fill it up with soil.
This myth never dies. You see this a lot on Facebook, on videos. Oh, we're going to add some gravel to the bottom of the container. Don't do it. Now, the reason why you do not want to do it, now we'll explain here. Water, you put gravel, it makes, you put gravel in the bottom of the container for drainage. You got the drainage holes anyway. Well, what happens is now you put 2 inches of gravel at the bottom of that container. Then you put 8 inches of soil on top of that gravel, and instead of having a 10-inch pot, now you have an 8-inch pot with 2 inches of gravel, and the roots will grow to the gravel, and that's it. It hurts the roots more than anything.
Right. So that's the thing, is that the roots will then hit that gravel, they'll stop growing, and then the plant can become stunted at that point. So you want to use a well draining soil, something that has a potting mix is good, especially if you're in containers, because it's going to have something like perlite or vermiculite, which helps add to the drainage of that soil. Also, something that has a little bit of sand in it will help that drainage as well, and that way you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to have a problem with the drainage.
Yeah, instead of preventing the roots from setting in the water of the container base, the gravel simply moves that pool of water higher up in the pot, where it can now do more damage to those roots.
When you have that gravel there, the water can pool, and then the roots go into that pool of water, and then it causes problems for the roots. So when you have a properly draining soil, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about putting gravel or...
But don't do it anyway.
Yeah.
Just have proper material in your container, and don't dig soil up you dug out, from the garden or the ditch or whatever, because that's problematic because it's not fluffy and loose. And these container plants need that very loose soil in order to grow correctly.
If you're super concerned, maybe you don't think that the container mix you have, the potting soil mix, whatever, doesn't look right. When you plant it, you can grab like a bag of perlite, grab a couple handfuls, mix it in if you think that it needs. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.